Welcome once again to Commander by Danon. Today, we're continuing our series on Dominaria United. However, instead of building a deck around a single commander, we're going to look at upgrades for the new pre-constructed commander decks. Today we'll be looking at how we can upgrade both Painbow and Legends Legacies. Before we get started, I'd like to quickly ask you to like and subscribe. I've been very happy with the growth this channel has had so far, and I'm excited to see where we're going. If you're looking for ways to support the channel directly, you can head on over to patreon.com/Danon. One of the tiers is specifically set up for Commander. For only $25, I will build you a custom Commander deck based around your specifications, and even do a deck video on it. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. If you're a longtime subscriber or a recent one, you know that I'm a fan of checklists for Commander. Not every deck needs to check all the boxes, but it's a good tool to help you build your deck. You want to draw extra cards, you want to have more mana than just one land per turn, and you want to blow up your opponent's threats or destroy their cards that shut down your deck. So let's review our checklist before diving into each of the pre-constructed commander decks. 50 mana sources, usually split between 37 lands and 13 pieces of ramp, 10 pieces of card advantage, 8 to 10 pieces of spot removal, 2 to 3 board wipes, 2 pieces of graveyard hate, and 1 sudden I win card. Let's start with Painbow. Led by the 5-colored planeswalker Jared Carthalion, this deck focuses on multicolored creatures. There are numerous payoffs for casting spells of all 5 colors, as well as a lot of new cards that are 5 colors. There's a new board wipe, Iridian Maelstrom, that destroys all creatures that aren't all colors. Two-headed Hellkite is a lovely dragon that my wife wants to put in her Tiamat deck. And Unite the Coalition is an interesting callback to Coalition Victory. The deck has a lot of built-in synergy, especially with its theme of casting spells with as many colors as possible. That being said, there are some issues with the deck. I'll break the deck down and compare it to my checklist so you can see what I'm talking about. 58 mana sources, split between 39 lands and 19 pieces of ramp. Very high, even with how high some of our spells cost. We could probably do with some cuts here. Only 8 pieces of card advantage, so we'll want to add some. 12 pieces of interaction. A little high, but that's fine. 5 board wipes. We'll want to cut a couple of these. 1 piece of graveyard hate, and no sudden I win cards. Let's start with adding some graveyard hate. Echoing Truth is situationally amazing. Bouncing a ton of insect tokens, zombies, or angels can be backbreaking to those kinds of decks. However, the card isn't very good outside of those conditions, so we're going to replace it with Ashiok Dreamrender. This is easily one of the best planeswalkers in Commander, and I highly recommend running it in most decks with the corresponding color identity. Painbow included a ton of reprinted legendary cards from previous pre-constructed Commander decks. Xyrus, Zaxara, and Arkelos are all amazing creatures that serve a variety of purposes, from card advantage to mana ramp to even staxing our opponents. And being able to tutor them, or any of our other legendary creatures, is great. That being said, Search for Tomorrow isn't a bad Magic card, but we have way too much mana ramp in the deck, especially ramp that only focuses on getting basic lands. So we'll be replacing Search for Tomorrow with Search for Glory. Now, I mentioned our card advantage was a bit light, so we'll be cutting Coalition Relic for Tachiova Benthic Druid. Additionally, Dune Blast is getting cut for Laisa Forgotten Archangel. We have too many board wipes in the deck, and having the ability to recast our creatures from the graveyard is too good to ignore. Alongside her, we're adding Radadrabik of Urborg. He'll be replacing Path to the World Tree. Now, we have 2 cards in the deck that make it so our lands come into play untapped: Arkelos Lagoon Mystic and Tiller Engine. We've already added a way to tutor Arkelos out, but I wanted a way to tutor Tiller Engine as well. So replacing Radiant Flames will be Tribute Mage. Having all of our lands enter untapped is huge. Looking at the list, we've got a lot of token generation, so replacing Prophetic Prism will be Thalassé Reverent Medium. Additionally, replacing Obsidian Obelisk will be Anointed Procession. Why yes, half of our budget for these $50 upgrades did go to this one card. Now, one other thing I wanted to do was replace all of the tricolored lands with the new typed tap duals from Dominaria United. So cards like Arcane Sanctum, Crumbling Necropolis, and Nomad Outpost are getting replaced with Idyllic Beachfront, Geothermal Bog, and Tangled Islet. The reason for this is that the deck comes with all 5 of the original fetch lands, the ones that don't cost life. So now the deck goes from having 6 non-basic lands with land types to 16, which means we'll want to adjust our ramp package as well. We'll be cutting Commander Sphere, Abundant Growth, and Explosive Vegetation for 3 visits, Nature's Lore, and Skyshroud Claim, respectively. As of recording, these changes amount to exactly $50, which I thought was pretty entertaining. Let's take a look at the modified deck and see how it turned out. 53 mana sources, split between 39 lands and 14 pieces of ramp. Still a little high, but much more reasonable. 13 pieces of card advantage, including a couple of tutors. 12 pieces of interaction. 3 board wipes. 2 pieces of graveyard hate. No sudden I win cards, but that's not what I was going for. With all the recursion we have in the deck now, we're able to grind our opponents into the ground. We have big creatures capable of dealing tons of damage. We can go tall by bestowing Chromanticore onto 2-headed Hellkite and beating our opponents to death. Or we can go wide with all of our token generators and overwhelm our opponents that way. Regardless, I'm happy with the state of the deck. I did want to include a Shieldred Whispering one in the deck as well, but that wasn't in the budget. Now, our other deck was a bit easier to pick upgrades for. Legends Legacy is a Mardu deck led by Dihada, Binder of Wills, another Planeswalker. This is a Legends Matter deck, and it runs a ton of payoffs for having legendary creatures on board. Honestly, I'm really happy with the core of this deck and think it's fine to run as is. Mostly. We are lacking in a couple of areas though. Let's compare it to our checklist and you'll see what I mean. 48 mana sources, split between 39 lands and 9 pieces of ramp. Could use some upgrades here. 12 pieces of card advantage, 6 pieces of interaction. We absolutely need more. 3 board wipes, right on target, 1 piece of graveyard hate, and no sudden I win cards. So, the deck needs more interaction and more ramp. We can probably get away with cutting a couple of lands if we add more mana rocks. Also, the deck has a bit of a Voltron sub-theme going on, which I'm not a fan of. I love me my Voltron decks, but most of the equipment here isn't very good. So to start, we're cutting Hero's Blade for a Braid, which is an amazing piece of spot removal. Day of Destiny is an anthem, and unless you're building specifically around anthems, I'm not a fan of them in Commander. So we're cutting it for Fracture. I really like Moira Urborg Haunt, but it doesn't seem to fit with what this deck is trying to do, so she's getting replaced for Despark. Finally, Sword of the Chosen is getting replaced with Ratadrabik of Urborg. Next up, let's take a look at improving our mana base. Zeriam Golden Wind is cute and would be fun to build a deck around, but by himself, I'd rather run a Boros Signet. Foreboding Ruins and Smoldering Marsh are getting replaced with Orzhov Signet and Rakdos Signet, respectively. Commander Sphere becomes Talisman of Conviction. Hedron Archive gets replaced with Talisman of Hierarchy, and the Circle of Loyalty is now Talisman of Indulgence. Now, we still have a bit more room in our budget, so we'll go ahead and upgrade some of our lands. The Bounce lands are getting replaced with Bond lands, and the 2 Pain lands are getting replaced with Check lands. So let's take a look at our new deck list and see how it compares to our checklist. 50 mana sources, split between 37 lands and 13 pieces of ramp, right on target. 11 pieces of card advantage, 9 pieces of interaction, 3 board wipes, 1 piece of graveyard hate, no sudden I win cards, but that's okay. The deck will be far more consistent with the improvements to the mana base and increased interaction. As I said earlier, I'm a fan of this deck and what it's trying to do. I just wish there wasn't a Voltron sub-theme. But if you want to go Voltron, you might as well go all out. If budget isn't a concern, you might want to look at adding a Chroma's Memorial and Embercleave. With this deck going wide instead of tall, Embercleave is a far better equipment than anything else in the deck, and you can easily equip it for 2. And a Chroma's Memorial is insane in a go-wide deck. What upgrades are you looking at for Legends, Legacies, or Painbow? Are you just going to keep them as is from the box or rip them apart and put them in other decks? I've got my eye on a Zeriam Golden Wind and a Bladewing Deathless Tyrant list, so you can expect videos on both of them in the future. Leave a comment below letting me know what your plans are for these decks. Thanks for tuning in. Once again, a huge shout out to my editor Cute Stuff. I couldn't make these videos without her. If you'd like to hire her to edit your own videos, there's a link to her Fiverr page below. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons, Jiraiya, Waffles, Muffins, Casey, Danny, Nick, Marcus, and Black Dragon. You guys are awesome. I post new Commander deck videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or you can click here to watch additional videos. Also, if you're a fan of anime and manga like I am, feel free to check out my other channel, Musings by Danon. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time on Commander by Danon.